Perfect. All right. Well, Mike, appreciate you for coming on. You ready?
I'm ready.
It's probably
Let's
a good thing
talk.
we didn't have record prior to me hitting record because there'd be just a half-hour bitching session.
That's
So,
all right. That's what podcasts are for.
but so you wanted to come on here and talk about Colorado and Washington, and Washington, and you live in California, correct?
I'm in California.
And so
Yeah.
you know just as much as I do that Oregon seems to follow what Big Brother California likes to do, and Washington,
Yeah.
is like our Siamese twin sometimes, and it just there's a lot to be concerned about right now.
Yeah.
But we have had some recent wins here. I think which was it Washington the right to hunt state law passed recently, correct?
So Washington surprised us. A group of 5 senators introduced legislation that if it gets through the legislature in Washington, will go onto the ballot to become a constitutional amendment in Washington state, basically codifying the right to hunt, fish, forage, which really it was out of the blue. Like nobody,
Hmm.
none of the hunting orgs, the hunting community, the Second Amendment community, like nobody knew the fishing community, nobody knew this was coming out. And what's interesting about it is that, well, there's a lot of interesting. One of the things that stood out to me was that the senators that did this are effectively acknowledging the mess that is going on in the commission right now,
Mm-hmm.
and they're seeing what I think a lot of us would say is a commission that is ignoring its charter, which is to maximize sustainable opportunity across all the big game species. By cutting off spring bear, there's no
Right.
scientific reason to cut off spring bear hunting. There's lots of scientific reasons to have it. And so I think these senators see what's happening at the commission level and want to put in a legal backstop to prevent a rogue commission from basically redefining hunting rights and conservation in
Right.
Washington. So that was pleasant to see. I think there's a chance it makes it out of the Senate into their assembly. I don't know if they call it assembly or house over there, but I think there's a chance it makes it out. The question for us as a hunting community is going to be, if this thing gets on the ballot, like we need it to win.
Right. Yeah, and that takes money. Unfortunately,
It takes a lot of money.
we're voting on all these issues. Look at Colorado, for example. Vote by mail. Decision making is just it's ruined Oregon's politics for many, 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 many years. We've been a mail
Yeah.
system voting, and Washington. I don't know how long they've been doing it, but they're doing the same stuff. And then I think Colorado is the same way, right?
I don't know if Colorado is that way in terms of voting process. I know that the ballot box biology issue
Yes.
is never good, because biology is complicated.
Right.
Biology is complicated. Hunting's complicated. Wildlife management is complicated. And that's one of the things that actually with the Washington State right to hunt constitutional amendment, it identifies that the legislative branch or the executive branch hold all the cards for deciding making wildlife management decisions. They effectively remove ballot box biology as being an option for where wildlife management decisions can be made in Washington as well. And so besides providing the legal backstop for, right to hunt sustainable populations, so the executive branch, of course, would be, where they can appoint the commissioners, they appoint the director of the department,
Right.
and then legislative being where laws are made and whatnot. And so that's interesting there, because I think they're anticipating that problem as well. Colorado, the issue we have this year, and I say I'm in California. Like, what do I care about Colorado, right? What do I care about Washington?
Mm-hmm.
I care because the anti-hunting industry is a national industry, and they fundraise nationwide, and they come into states where they see a point of weakness or an opportunity. They see some low-hanging fruit that they can chop at. And so that's what's going on in Colorado as well right now, is with this ballot initiative, where it's currently called Proposition 91. We don't know what the actual number will be once it goes into a ballot, but they're out there they're doing petition signature gathering right now
Mm-hmm.
to put on the ballot um, effectively making it illegal to hunt mountain lions, bobcats, and lynx. Lynx are already illegal to hunt because they're protected, but bobcat and mountain lions in Colorado. So they're replacing what is effectively a good management tool, which is hunting. And it's a highly regulated hunt in Colorado. Different units have different quotas. It's highly regulated in terms of season, in terms of take, in terms of reporting. The data that they get from it's phenomenal. And so they want to eliminate hunting as a mechanism that feeds sustainable conservation and replace it with nothing. But they're going to lead with a trophy hunting title, or they're, when Joe and Joanne Public see the ballot initiative being promoted, they're going to be told this is a trophy hunting measure. And well, what's trophy hunting mean? It means whatever the anti-hunting industry has defined it as over the last 20 years. And so, ballot box biology, it's expensive to fight. It can happen very quickly if it's voted on, and it's almost impossible to repeal.
Right.
So it's like the antithesis of good science. It's the antithesis of good management practices. So Howl is very involved in these. I think that we as a community, no matter what state we're in, no matter what animal we pursue,
Right.
no matter what our method of take is, we have to view all of these attacks as attacks on individuals and the community at large, and we need to really throw in and put our voices and sometimes put our dollars into supporting
Right.
A win for the hunting community in these areas.
Well, I agree, and I did a big study on and I still have a whole file on it because I was wanting to do a podcast on it about how did Oregon in 1994 lose its ability to hound hunt, effectively hound hunt in Oregon. It was measure 18, and it was a citizen sponsored ballot, and it got voted on, and it basically, I was looking at all the statistics because ODF&W even did that's our Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, even did their own study, like how the hell did this pass? And and they did
postmortem. It's always a postmortem.
They did a postmortem.
Unfortunately.
and it's funny because I actually was interviewing one of the folks that did the interview that many years ago. We have them locally, and she's like, yeah, did you read the report? I'm like, the report's like that thick. It's thick, and here's how many voters that voted to ban it thought that bear's main meal was fish. Like there was like 5% of voters thought that bear lived on fish because they thought ours were probably grizzlies and fed on salmon all the time. It's just like, here's how many that think we have grizzly bears and like that they're protecting grizzly bears. It is insane how uneducated the voters were. And then also hound hunters weren't super popular in the hunting community back then. The trappers weren't super popular, and there was still a lot of bickering and arguing between the rifle trapping and bow hunting, and so we even had sportsmen voting against it. And united we stand, divided we fall, and that's like the perfect example of that. And now we're still dealing with it. We have like 3.5 to 4 times the population of cougars we want in Oregon. We have over 33,000 bears in Oregon. It is insane what the populations have done, and that is because of the ballot box biology topic that you brought up. And I guess my question to you is how do we fix that? Like what is the solution there?
Yeah. I think the solution is multifold. The long-term solution to me that insulates hunting as the best mechanism for wildlife success and conservation while also promoting hunting is to have your average non-hunter know enough about it to where when they see a slogan from HSUS, they can call bullshit. They can say, I know enough about hunting. I know enough hunters. I
Mm-hmm.
know enough about hunting. I know about enough about the the wildlife successes that have come from hunting being a mechanism in conservation, that when I'm told hunters don't eat mountain lion, I can say, I think you're lying to me. Like I feel like you're lying to me. I feel like Humane Society are telling me an untruth. Because right now, a lot of non-hunter, ultimately, it's the non-hunters that vote yay or nay on these ballot box initiatives. Nobody will bring a ballot box initiative to the people because it's expensive unless they feel like they've got that core sentiment in favor of their initiative. And so we need that group of people better educated.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that they're busy, like we're all busy, and if they don't hunt, they're not going to pursue this information. Like we need to present it in a format starting from like as kids. Like we need to get the information and the data. One data point, like with Colorado, you go to a non-hunter and say, oh, stop mountain lions, stop trophy hunting mountain lions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't like trophy hunting because I've been told what it is,
Right.
and even, it's probably poaching, but I think I have an opinion. Oh, mountain lions, oh, they must be struggling, they must be endangered. Well, the counterpoint is very simple. In the 60 years that mountain lions have been hunted as a big game animal in Colorado, they've gone from roughly 200 to anywhere between 3 and 5,000. Oh, they're not endangered. Wait, and they've been hunted the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like we need to somehow get these anecdotes and then the stories of hunters, and then hunters knowing their community better, or the community knowing the hunters better. We need all these things to happen. And the problem right now is that we're dealing with an accumulated resistance to hunting that's been intentionally built up over the last 20 to 40 years. So we're not going to change it overnight. Like we're not going to change this overnight. It's going to take our own proactive campaign of putting our stories and putting the wildlife successes that hunting can drive into the public sphere more proactively over the next 5, 10, 20 years. Um, but on the short term, I think what we need to do as a community is whenever these issues come up, we all need to dive on it
Right.
and speak out against it. Tell 5, 10 people why we're speaking out against it, and if we need to, we need to commit, whatever a couple arrows costs, or a box of shotgun shells, or a box of ammo costs, to throw in financially support, because ultimately these initiatives have big budgets behind them coming when HSUS is pushing them,
Mm-hmm.
or any of these national orgs that are effectively anti-hunters. And really, they're not just against hunters; they're against humans participating in the natural world. Like some of them.
They don't want us to exist out in the wild. They want
Yeah,
they want to reclaim all that animal, all the habitat for animals, and let them sing kumbaya and
but reclaim, what on what date was it that humans showed up and started, like, on the landscape? Like, humans have always been
right.
in a there's always been tension between humans and the wolf pack. There's always been tension between humans and the bears. There's always been tension. Humans have always been harvesting prey species. Like, we've been managing wildlife and habitats since the beginning of time.
Right.
They act like we're aliens, and that and they prey upon an urban and suburban mindset that doesn't go out and explore the woods very often, unfortunately.
I think you hit a really important topic there, and they're starting off in schools, and we see it right now. And my wife is going to kill me for even covering this, but we see it right now with the LGBTQ stuff going on, and that getting pushed in schools and getting shoved down our throats. And then you see all these students coming out being pro-Palestine or pro this or pro that, and they have no idea what real world consequences, or what would life even be like if you live there. You have young gays, or even just stupid gays, coming out and supporting Palestine. Like, they'd throw you off a fucking roof if you live
Right.
there. You
Right.
realize that, right?
There's like an intellectual disconnect
Right.
on some
And
of those
so
things.
when you're dealing with that much ignorance and arrogance out there, how do we? I guess my question would be is how do we start in the schools? Because the opposing, I guess, views, mainly one side politically, is
Mhm.
pushing for this crap, and they're way better at it. They're just succeeding where my train of thought isn't.
Yeah.
And I guess I can just call it for what it is. I mean,
They're very smart. And the other thing is they've been just focusing on like the wildlife and conservation, hunting. They they work the language. Like you've got anti-hunting groups that are now instead of calling themselves animal rights groups, they're calling themselves conservation groups.
right,
They're basically trying to they'll get a press release out that says, wildlife for all, which we know, like everything they come out for is against human engagement with animals in
correct.
terms of hunting. And now wildlife for all, because they've done enough press releases, they call themselves a conservation group. Media starts to call them conservation. It's like you just have flipped 120 years, a definition that's been in place for 120 years on its head,
Right.
like that. Like, but they do it intentionally. So in Colorado, we know wolves were a recent release. Thank you, Oregon, for sharing
Yeah,
your
no, we
your your
we
depredation
gave you some of
wolves.
those things, and I've even got mixed opinions on that. But
No, I do too. But like, so these wolves were released, and we all know that okay, there's 10 or 15 wolves. They're going to go out and slay tens of thousands of prey species, ungulates,
right,
and quite a few sheep and cattle. Right? We
right,
know this.
hmm
So after the release was done, one of the sponsor orgs that is pro wolf at all costs, because that's the thing, they're pro wolf at all costs. They don't, there's no limit, there's no number of wolves that they say, okay, we're at the right spot for management. The pro wolf at all costs group went into the public schools and they started getting elementary school kids to name the wolves.
hmm,
And it wasn't you 15 kids can name each wolf
hmm
one, and the other 300,000 elementary school kids in Colorado can name a deer or an elk or a sheep or a cow. And then we can get reports on, oh, Susie, your sheep got killed last week by Johnny's wolf.
right,
No, it's like, and so at what point in time one of these wolves is going to either show up dead or be taken out because of depredation through all the legal mechanisms that are there,
hmm
because the wolf has been killing, slaughtering sheep and cattle, goats, etc. All these kids are going to be heartbroken. So they're intentionally developing the minds of these children
to have an
to
emotional
to
bias, really.
with a massive emotional bias,
hmm
and to then dislike and hold a grudge against Colorado Parks and Wildlife and against the rancher.
Right.
It's wild. And so I was listening to Huberman talk from December about like health issues. But his guest, they were talking about social movements, and he said, how do major social movements happen? You teach the kids, and the naysayers will die. It takes 20 to 30 years.
Right.
And so, so from my view, and this is one of the things that Howl is working on. Everybody knows Howl for the action center.
Right.
We'll get an action out. People can dive on it. Doesn't matter where they are. They can dive in, get their voice heard at the decision-making level for that issue, whether it be in Washington State,
Right.
Oregon, Colorado. And it's been highly effective in a number of settings and a number of initiatives in the last 2 years. The other side of Howl that isn't as public yet because it's still being built, but it's been in Charles and mine and John's mindset over the last year is developing messaging that talks to the non-hunting community, and developing messaging that calls out, like, the just like the social bias against hunters. HSUS lies about hunters all the time, going back to Colorado and anything that's bear related.
hmm
Oh, they don't eat the meat. It's recreational. which they use the word recreational, which in technical terms it just means it's not commercial.
Mm-hmm.
Like in Washington State, you have commercial fishing and you have recreational fishing.
Right.
You have recreational bear hunts. It just means you're not selling the meat. It doesn't mean it's frivolous, but they
Right.
use words like that.
Or
And
sport
so,
hunting or sport fishing.
sport hunting, sport fishing. It means it's not commercial.
Right.
But they use those words and they latch onto them and use them to communicate to the non-hunting community as though it's frivolous or it's reckless or it's not beneficial to conservation. So there's this bias, and then they lie. They don't eat the meat. There's so many. There's no conservation value. I think. Oh, then they'll say there's only 3%. Like only 4% of hunters are Washingtonians or Oregonians hunt. So therefore, it's appropriate to take this right away from them. It's appropriate to legislate this out of existence because only 3 or 4% do it. And I'm like, it's 2023, 2024. When did we start using the small percentage of participants in a human activity as a basis to make it go away?
Right. You just call yourself a minority, you'll get away with whatever you want.
you just identified yourself as a bigot.
Right. Yeah.
And they are, and so one of the things that Howl is working on is both the proactive messaging about the number of mountain lions with regulated hunting in place over 40, 50 years. Like it's gone up, the benefits of hunting, but also just the fact that hunting is an intrinsically human activity. You go back through every culture since the beginning of time. There has been a hunter in the family, the clan, the tribe, the village, the community. There's been hunters in those groups. Not everybody has hunted.
Right.
But there's always been hunters, and they've always been a part of the community. They've always provided a service, and they've always provided a benefit. And so it's intrinsically natural. So for them to want to take away hunting, they're effectively attacking, going after what has been since the beginning of time an intrinsically human activity. And we need to start communicating in a way at some, one of the levels we need to communicate is to the non-hunter, to where that non-hunter, when they realize they're taking something of value away from people that they know, there's a little bit of an emotional tug or a little bit of a little mental friction where they're like, I don't want to be the person that's taking away simple human rights from people.
Right. I think and I am in the logging industry for my personal job, and so I see all of the word salads and all the things that you have to say, all the sustainable and all this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and so I've been able to kind of work that into my conversations with hunting. Like I'm into sustainable hunting. Like, well, what's that? Like that's a great term. That's sustainable hunting, like, because we have sustainable logging, we have the sustainable forestry training. We have initiatives here in Oregon for logging, and so I've been stealing some of that stuff and then using it in the hunting industry, and it plugs and it plays perfectly. And it just seems like, for example, I had a coworker, actually a friend of mine now, but her and I didn't see anywhere. But instead of
there's no eye to eye.
There's none. No. She's about as far left as you could get.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty much near the middle, lean right, and and I used to be way farther right, and I'm like, okay, I kind of see there's some of my
there's
old,
wackos on all
there's shitty people on both sides. Let's put it that way. So for me, I'm more of just like, leave me alone, let me do my thing, kind of like a, I don't know, independent libertarian, I guess. But anyways, she's about as far left as you could get, and she instead of combating her and just arguing with her and just having a bad relationship, we developed this really good friendship where I'm like, I would call her and I could have these conversations with her, and I'm like, listen, Mike, can you please, on this subject here, could you explain to me how somebody could even think like this? Because I know you do. Can you explain to me? How do you get to this? Yeah, because I mentally can't even gymnastic my way there. Oh, well, if you look at it like this, and this, and that, okay. if you okay, so I see in your fucked up world, yeah, that I could see how you got there. And then, well, long story short, she was very anti-hunting. She didn't think that we eat bears or cougars or anything. It was news to her, and
Right.
she
Of
didn't have
course.
any history or any facts or anything like that. And I'm just like, I'm showing her pictures of this, and then I had her and her daughter over, and I cooked them, an organic elk taco, and
Yeah.
just using their verbiage and trying to extend that bridge. And she is now a hunting advocate, and
Yeah.
it took about a year. And
Yeah.
I didn't beat her over the head with it, but she would ask, she would come to me and like, they're saying this and that about bear hunting and trophy hunting. I'm like, listen, trophy hunting doesn't exist in the United States. Really, it truly doesn't. If you think trophy hunting is just going out taking a picture, trophy hunting doesn't really exist hardly anywhere that I know of.
Not legally.
Yeah,
Not
and
not the whack it off and leave it to rot. I mean,
exactly.
that's poaching worldwide now.
Right. And I'm like, when somebody says trophy hunting, I always ask them, like, what are you talking about? What is trophy hunting? And
Right.
and they usually stumble over themselves and they can't tell. And usually it's like they kill something to take a picture of it and then they leave it. That might be
Hmm.
the definition if they can even come up with one. I'm like, well, that
Hmm.
is illegal. There is laws against that. I would personally have a problem with that. I would turn that person in, or I'd get in a
Hmm.
fight with that person if I caught them doing that,
Yeah.
or I'd call them out. And that's what the hunting community would do, would police its own. And so, again, what is trophy hunting? Because what your definition doesn't exist. And
Right.
and just I don't know, just having good conversations with that, but more importantly, asking good questions for me has moved the ball more.
So you just nailed something. Asking good questions is critical because if we're asking questions, we're not trying to stuff our beliefs down their throat. We're trying to get them to like pull forward why they think the way they
Exactly.
do. And then it's like, okay, I see what you're saying. If that's what it was, I would be with you. Like I would agree with you. But the word salad, like sustainability, like there's a reason that elk and whitetail and black bear and grizzlies and wolves, like, there's a reason so many animals, waterfowl, waterfowl were endangered at one point in North America. There's a reason the whole method of conservation was created 120 years ago, is because so many animals were in crisis. So many species were about to go extinct. Um, people have people think that hunters, like the modern regulated legal hunter, was responsible for that, and they don't know that actually modern regulated hunting, where animals are managed in a program, that has been what's brought all these animals back to abundance. And so I yeah, if somebody's just going into the woods and killing everything they can see,
Right.
um, then that's a problem. That's not modern hunting. That's not regulated legal hunting. And so I view like hunting. Do you want something that's sustainable economically? Like what if it's sustainable ecologically, but it takes a ton of money from everybody that's not involved? Well, that doesn't work so well. But hunting economically, because we all pay in, it's economically sustainable and it's also ecologically sustainable. So
Right.
sustainable is a great word. Um, I think it's one of the most important words, and then also legal, regulated, purposeful, and we eat it and we
Right.
consume it.
Right.
But they're all the things that they're all the things that when the anti-hunting industry says they're trophy hunting, for some reason everybody trusts what those orgs say. Like people just innately trust. Oh, HSUS is telling me this. Um, all the good stuff that is actually happening in the modern hunting and conservation is washed away because somebody says the word trophy hunting.
Right.
Um, I want to redefine trophy hunting. Like truly, unless it's poaching, trophy hunting means you're probably passing on animals, on younger, immature animals.
Right.
You're being selective.
Selective hunting. Yeah.
You're selective. Like, what do you want? Do you want hunters that are indiscriminate and just shoot whichever deer shows up?
Right.
Or do you want them to be selective and purposeful? Oh, now I'm being selective and purposeful. And do you want them to go for an older male that is the least contributing to the overall resource and the herd at this point? Oh, yeah. Like, and I'm only going to take one, so I want the most meat off of it.
Right.
So again, I want the older male. So like there's a point I it's a little delusional, but 5, 10 years from now, I would like the average non-hunter to hear the word trophy hunting and know that we just described that it describes exactly what we just talked about. It's selective. You're probably passing on animals. Maybe you're buying tags and not even filling them because they don't meet your goal.
Right.
Like it's the most ecologically and economically sustainable system. So trophy hunters like they get they get the blue badge of support.
Right.
Um, but we're a long ways off from that. But what you did with your friend there that was so opposed. And the cool thing is she was like steadfast in her opposition. Guess where she is now?
Oh, she's a pro. Yeah.
She's steadfast in her support.
Yes. Yes. And she'll say, my friend Garrett, my friend Garrett said this or taught me this, and it's
Yeah.
and that won't work with. I don't think that'll work with most people because I showed her a willingness to understand and to
Yep.
really truly dive into her mindset of all sorts. And she's from Portland, so you can imagine what she's thinking. And
Imagine what she's fed. Like, imagine the input she's got to
yes,
deal with. Like, you had
yes.
to break through. You had to break through a whole
Well, I mean,
forest of
she
just
thought Joe
BS.
Rogan was a radical, elitist, right wing conservative,
And she'd listened to him
and
how many times?
she zero.
Right,
Zero.
exactly.
And so it was just like, well, I'm like, she's like, you listen to Joe Rogan? I'm like, yeah, from here and there. She's like, isn't he like super right wing? I'm like, actually, no, he's a liberal. Like he's more liberal than I mean, yeah, he's a Second Amendment liberal. I mean, that's
Right.
that's what he is. I mean, he is all for all sorts of things that I don't agree with, but
Yeah.
we agree on Second Amendment and we agree on hunting and
elk.
and he's got some wild ass views on public land hunting that I'd like to talk to him about someday. But it's just interesting how people have these really strong, deep seated beliefs, but as soon as somebody confronts them on them, like, actually, no, that's not even right. They're like, oh, well, I didn't know that, but they were dead set that was right, and they would vote that way, and they would think that way, and they would talk to their friends that way in their own little echo chambers, and it just seems to me like the more we can get out and have those conversations, and yeah, that's just one grain of sand on the beach. I get it.
Yeah.
But being able to get out and she's a vegan even, so she'll eat certain meat, I believe, or something like that. But her and her daughter were willing to at least try organic meat, and it was pretty cool.
They did. So
I want to say. Well, I made her elk tacos, and then I did cook chicken on the Traeger because that was inside of her normal diet. So if she chickened out last second, I gave her a chicken taco. But I think I want to say her and her daughter both really, really enjoyed the elk. And then after they ate one, I think they went back to chicken. But they did truly like it. So, but my point is that there's we talked about this prior. There's 97% of people out there, give or take, from the research I've done, that eats meat, right? And then what percentage from your research hunts in the United States of America?
I think it varies by state, but if you include angling, maybe 20%.
Yeah.
But more likely, like, between California, literally, it's like 2%.
Yeah. You're in a minority there. You should be very powerful.
We want to pull that as much as we can. We would like to be a protected class if we could.
Yeah, exactly.
That would save us a lot of hassle.
So my point being is how do we get the people that eat meat but don't hunt? Let's just say 7 or 80% of people, 85. My numbers on the internet, when I always Google how many people in the United States hunt, it's anywhere from like 10 to 14%, 15% hunt. Let's just call it 10%, make it easy.
Sure.
So 97% eat meat, 90% don't hunt. So that is a giant window of people that should be voting in our favor.
Yeah.
Because they are taking part in a process of eating meat that I'm not comfortable with. I don't like factory farming. I don't like seeing animals treated like that. I don't like industrial slaughter. It just really turns me off. It grosses me out. I haven't bought hamburger from the store in probably 6-7 years. I eat ground elk meat only. I live off of my freezer. I buy chicken from the store, and that's about it because I can't kill it myself. I live in the city. I don't have room for chickens. And but my point being is how do we email blasts are great. and
Yeah,
they do move the needle on the legislative once something's got too
sure.
far down the process. But is there anything that we can do to reach a better point of that 97% of the people out there?
Yeah, I think the email blast are when we as a hunting community are exercising our advocacy directly to decision makers, and that's something that we haven't been good at. We're getting better at it, and I think Howl is part of that. There's a lot of orgs that are part of that, but that's advocacy is critical. The part about getting the 90% that don't eat, that don't hunt, um, engaged and kind of have their minds sway to where they understand that hunting is on the entire meat spectrum. I think is going to require just straight up communications and PR campaign, and
Money.
it's going to take money. Like in the Wisconsin cheese, California got milk. There's a lot of a Super Bowl ad. Like there's going to be a lot of
Right.
we just have to decide as a community, do we value and acknowledge that there's a disconnect in the average non-hunter's mindset about what we do and how it contributes positively to individual and community health and wildlife health. Like, because it does. Like, it's good for us to get out in the woods. I think getting out in the woods
100%.
and doing something difficult, mentally and physically difficult, is one of the best things you can do for a human. It's good for the critters because we're paying into it, and it feeds wildlife success on all levels. So it's not a lie. Like it's all true, but it's like the best kept secret. Because like your friend, like there's probably some aha moments along the way of learning,
Mm-hmm.
oh, it's not what I thought. Oh, it's not what I've been told. Oh, like so there's all these aha moments that we kind of hold close to the vest. And I think it's just going to take us investing, and so it's money, but it's also just a commit, like a mental commitment to getting these stories and anecdotes and data. So it could be about all the different ethnic communities in the U.S. that hunt and what their cultural heritage is. It could be about the meat eater's journey from industrial farmed to regenerative to all natural wild game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and what the nutritional, like what's that nutritional curve look like when you go from factory farmed, chicken to elk? Like,
Right.
what's the nutritional value look like? Regenerative being in the middle, and it's probably healthier. But there's so many angles that we can come at with this. But we need to start developing those communication tools, and they need to be in literally like 15 and 30-second bites that
Right.
people can see, have it challenge or break some kind of preconceived notion, get a few people to click through on it and read deeper and learn more. And then also, how do we get fifth grade biology and sophomore year biology and freshman year in college biology to all include like 2 hours on
Right.
on hunting as a proactive and positive mechanism in the conservation systems. Like that's like if we could get 2 hours literally in every fifth grade biology class or segment, and then again in high school, and then in college, and get more people just reading that page in the book that demonstrates the positive impacts of hunting for wildlife, that would be massive.
Well, I mean, and that luckily I had a good biology teacher, and she wasn't a hunter, but she totally understood that hunting was part of the way of life. And but I do remember in school growing up, remembering about the keystone species and all that stuff, and all the animals are connected, and if the keystone species goes down, we were taught that everything else is going to crash. Oh my gosh, you can't have a keystone species go bye-bye, and this animal will go bye-bye, and then it'll be a mass extinction. Like that's what I was taught in school, and I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, man, like knowing that, and then seeing all this property, and I will have to admit, like I believe the anti-hunting orgs and they're better at it than we are. They just do a better job. They have a better ground game. They have better propaganda. I remember
They've been intentional. They've been
they
intentional with
have
it
been,
for a
and they're
long time.
united. Oregon
Yeah.
hunters can't even agree on what broadhead to use. We can't even agree on what poundage is acceptable or what arrow
Right.
weight's acceptable or whatever. It's like we can't even get our shit together long enough to come with a national ad or something like that.
Right. Right.
It's really frustrating. It just seems like an anti-hunter hates hunters, but yeah, a pro hunter also hates other hunters. Like, I feel like there's just so many holes in this boat that it's going to take more than one person just trying to plug it. And so, do you know who Blood Origins is?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
love it.
I donate
Robbie,
to him.
Blood Origins,
Yeah,
they're-
Robbie's a
they're-
great guy.
they're doing great work.
Yeah, and I donate a little bit to him every month, and I have been for probably 2 years. And I feel like we need more Robbies out there. We need more.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say we need more Howls out there because it's nice to have a concerted effort that makes all the email blasts go to one spot. Like if we have a bunch of little crumbs and nookies and crannies over here, it just seems like the message might get lost or diluted a little bit. But if we have one epicenter to go to, we can really make a big push. And I think, in my opinion, Howl's kind of become that. I don't know if that's what you've seen, but it just seems like I know my organization in Oregon definitely loves Howl. We utilize you guys. We appreciate it. Amy's definitely an advocate of you guys.
Yeah.
And I am as well when I'm at the board meetings. if somebody brings you guys up, I talk about you. John has been my contact until I met you. But
Good.
it just seems like you guys have moved the needle and you guys have done a good job, in my opinion.
I think we've moved the needle. Now the needle was buried
Pretty low.
It was pretty low.
Yeah.
It's easy to clear the bar when it's set low like that. But we have moved the needle, and we're getting more and more support and more engagement. We want at the action center level, we want to be a resource for the coalition that you've got there in Oregon with Amy Patrick. We want to be a resource for the coalition here in California.
Right.
We want to be a resource, but it's not just for you guys. Like if you in Oregon have a need for people nationwide to dive in and say something to your electeds or your commission, that's the thing that the Action Center works so well for. And so we're continuing to make strides with that. I think the part about the hunting is human part.
Mm-hmm.
Is one of is the other chapter, or it's the other side of the coin for Howl, which will be more nuanced, and that's where we're going to play the long game. Is start getting, whether it's placement, social media ads that pop up. They wouldn't pop up on your radar because they're going to be targeted towards non-hunters,
right?
Whether it's social media ads, pop-ups, or a billboard, I think. 15 to 20 metropolitan areas in the U.S. should have 3 to 5 billboards coming in and out of town that talk about the different faces of hunters, the different types of hunting. It's not all deer. Things that put images and 15, 30-second stories that show we're hunting bear, we're eating mountain lion,
right?
Racial, ethnic, cultural diversity, men and women. Some of it's families, some of it's individuals. Like just put up information that breaks the stereotypes down to where people that live in an urban environment start getting visual messaging that's positive about hunting and hunters and wildlife benefiting. And that stuff's going to cost a lot of money, but I think we have the ability to blow some minds and win some hearts over time by doing that.
My fear is that eventually, first of all, this shouldn't even be in the ballot. These we pay biologists through state tax money or whatever, and then our commissions go on and just completely ignore them, and it seems like we're playing the game that they want us to play because they think they've got more money and they're more organized and they're already way better at the game than us. Is it possible for us to go back to biologists making the decisions and getting these activists out of these commissions? Because it really, best case scenario for me, Mike, is you guys work yourselves out of a job. You guys don't have to be Howl anymore. You guys can just go out and just be
Just
hunters.
hunt.
Yeah,
Just
just
hunt.
hunt. Like
Take the victory lap and go hunting.
exactly. How do we? Is there any
That's
strategy for getting back to the commission level to where we listen to our biologists that we pay money for?
Yeah. And again, that's getting the non-hunter mindset turned towards us. And then we start getting like the right to hunt and fish, sustainable hunt, fish, and forage, which has been this petition or the legislation in Washington. Start getting that to where every state has a constitutional amendment
Mm-hmm.
that protects that. What I view in California is, by 2030, can California have this constitutional amendment that pushes all wildlife management decisions to the commission? Now, the commission can still be screwed up, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the commission, at least, it takes longer for things to happen. The commission has a charter. They're generally going to listen to the department more. If you can get these constitutional amendments in place, but that requires the non-hunting voter to support it at the
Mm-hmm.
time of the vote, you get those in place, and the bar that the anti-hunters have to clear to degrade conservation and hunting as part of wildlife management is much higher. And so I 100% agree. And I would love to see all decisions about wildlife management pushed back to the commission using the department. Like
Right.
these departments have hundreds of millions of dollars in their budgets, as they should, right? We want biologists that are studying the deer herds in California. We want
Right.
biologists that are studying the mountain lions in Colorado. We want those people there. We want them to be good. We want them to be smart and informed, and make good scientific decisions. And so if we can get it to where in every state the commission makes their decisions based on department data and sustainability and opportunity, unregulated opportunity is not good because we may overharvest.
Right.
So they have to be in balance. Like we want them in balance. You were talking about something before we started recording about Oregon, where you've got some mechanisms to hunt now available to you that are not regulated well enough, and there could be overharvest. And so we
Right.
don't want that overharvest. But we've got to get the non-hunter mindset to support the constitutional amendments that push these decisions back into the commission and the department structure where it was for so long and it worked. And then we've significantly won in terms of insulating ourselves, insulating the system from attack. Because it's not just I'm not being attacked. Like the system that works so well is what's being attacked. And we need that system in place for the next 100 years.
Right. Well, my problem with it is that you for Oregon, since I've been alive, I don't think we've had a Republican governor. It might be maybe when I was born or just before I was born. But long story short, you have rules where the governor can pick the commission board, and you're always going to get a biased or anti-hunting commission board. I mean, unless something
I'm
changes.
going to blow your mind. I'm going
Let's
to blow
see it.
your mind right now.
Blow it.
Governor Newsom, California.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's seated 3 or 4 of the 5 commissioners now.
Okay.
They are all pro opportunity. Like the commissioner he just, and so as a Californian, like this is like a parallel universe.
Yeah, that
'Cause
doesn't
there's
seem real.
so much about Newsom that just from a political viewpoint, economic, management of the state, there's so many things I'm like, it's crazy. He just appointed a new commissioner who owns a shooting and hunting club. He owns like a private hunting club. He's in it's a it's a shooting club.
That's wild.
And a hunting ranch. Like it's amazing. This guy's going to be very solid unless he's I don't know. I mean, it's so not what's happening in Oregon and Washington that here in California we have a commission that is solidly about sustainable opportunity. Like if there's critters, hunt them. Fishing's got a different story, but we also have a lot of struggle around salmon, steelhead, and sturgeon.
Do you think with the commission board being the way it is currently, then that you'll get cougar hunting back?
No, and that's the other problem is that the decisions that were made that took mountain lion hunting, that took running bears, took the current bobcat hunt away. All of those things all of those decisions were made at the legislative level or the ballot box.
Mm.
And so that's where ballot box biology is very hard to overturn. Legislative decisions that deal with wildlife management are very hard to overturn. The commission structure, is flawed as it is, can ebb and flow. It ebbs and flows much slower, but also if they decide that they got it wrong, or the data for whatever reason starts to go the other direction and they need to course correct, they can. Like, the commission structure is far more flexible and nimble in terms of moving with data than any of these legislative and ballot box initiatives are. Which is why I think that we've got to get now. Some states have a commission structure that is, some states say, somebody from this side of the state, somebody from that side of the state, somebody that's independent. Like, there's all these different boxes that have to be checked. Those seem like they could be better, but they can also become flawed. Somebody could be put in from, just because they're on this side of the state doesn't mean they're pro hunting. They might be more. Like in Washington, or Oregon, if you're from the eastern side of the state, maybe you're pro outdoor recreation, hunting, etc., than if you're from the west side of the state. But there can be manipulation there too.
Right. It just seems like it's like, in that case that you brought up, is, I didn't know about that. That's awesome. It's an outlier, but it's awesome. That's pretty freaking rad. That's the first time I've ever heard that happening. But it just seems like, you get the Lorna Smiths on the Washington commissions, and it's like, how in the hell is she even allowed to have an opinion? How did she even get there? Yeah. And that for me is like, just makes me so cynical. It's like, she doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. I've heard her talk, and then I heard I follow Ross Sharp from the Crazy Elk or something company. Great guy, very active, and I watched the video that he posted at the commission's meeting, and then one of the people that I imagine is on the commission, it was a guy. He's like, these other organizations, I'm guessing HSS or HSUS or whatever they call themselves, and all these, they bring biologists in here, and then they talk about all this other stuff. And he's like, why haven't you guys brought a biologist in here? And I'm like, no one said anything. And immediately I'm like, that's what our fucking tax dollars are for, asshole.
We have 100 biologists.
Yes,
right over
I'm like,
there.
They're right there. Yeah, and it's
they're
like,
really
dude,
smart.
I just wish I was in that meeting for that. I'm like, I just was like, dude,
it's nuts.
What the fuck are you talking about? We have tax funded, right? Like, you're ignoring them, and it just seems like a big game to me. And so,
I think the answer, like with Washington, the answer again goes back to the non-hunting public, because at the end of the day, the senators that confirm those commissioners are electeds, and they care what the votes say. The governor is a politician.
Right.
The governor wants to get elected. So no matter how dyed in the wool they are as an anti-hunter or whatever, they're going to swing the way the wind is blowing. And if the wind from the non-hunter 60-70% middle majority is favorable towards hunting, those electeds are not going to let this BS happen at the commission level.
Right.
And
Makes
so
sense.
I think we have a situation in Washington and in Colorado where the governor is fairly anti-hunting, and it's politically favorable for them to have that stance. So we need to change the way that wind blows. Even if it just goes from being anti-hunting to neutral, like it will be a dramatic change. We need to neutralize that wind that gives them that emboldens the politicians to be so blatantly corrupt, anti-hunting, whatever you want to say, biased. Even if just all the commissioners could just be non-biased, just here's your charter, make decisions that are based on data, use the department as your resource for data, and then go for it. Like, that's just, if they could just be objective. But clearly what's happening in Washington, it's not objective. She came in with bias because a governor planted her there, and the Senate either didn't know, didn't care, or um, was supportive of it. And that's where we've got to shift that wind,
Right.
by talking to the non-hunting public.
What is the and we'll wrap this up here shortly, Mike. But
Hmm.
what is the main push for Hush or for Howl right now? What is the main thing that you guys are fighting or trying to get the word out about right now?
Um, we're putting a lot of effort to support what's going on in Colorado,
Hmm.
and support. But by support, I mean helping CRWM, Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management, get the build grassroots communications and engagement with the hunting community, to get the hunting community to turn out to then support them financially or with grassroots effort in Colorado to steer this ballot initiative to a loss. Because I think we've seen it before where the proponents of this ballot box initiative, which would remove mountain lion hunting and bobcat hunting and trapping, they've inserted language into the statutory language in the initiative defines trophy hunting as any pursuit, stalking, intentional killing. Like, it's hunting.
Hmm.
I stalk, I pursue, I shoot at intentionally to kill.
Hmm.
Like, they took the definition of hunting and they're saying that that's what trophy hunting is. And it'll be the first time in North American history that trophy hunting has a statutory definition. And ironically, it's the same as hunting.
Right.
And so they're gonna, if they win that there, not only do I kind of say we're all past, present, or future Colorado hunters. Like, I have points in Colorado. I
Hmm.
would love to hunt mule deer there. I would love to hunt elk there at some point. Like, we're all hunters in Colorado at some point in our lives. Like, we all aspire to it. So at the end of the day, we need to do this to put a blockade on this issue and this attack against hunting as a management tool and as part of as the number one mechanism that supports conservation. We need to block this in Colorado. So we're putting a lot of effort there. And then the other side of the deal where we're focusing a lot of effort and looking at how to start spinning up ads in the non-hunting community is in Washington. Getting messaging out into, the Seattle, Bellevue, Tacoma area.
Hmm.
Um, PDX isn't too far behind.
Right.
Portland's not too far
Oh
behind.
yeah, no, they're right there.
But those are gonna be like the testing grounds for, like, what can we put out into these urban centers that are clearly not helping us, with some messaging that breaks the stereotypes that the HSUSs use against us, and start to wear down that anti-hunting messaging some, and start to see if we can start swinging some public sentiment our way.
Well, hopefully you guys keep priming that pump, and feel free to tag me on anything that you guys want to get the word out about. And
Yeah,
I really, Mike, appreciate the work that you and John and all you guys are doing over there at Howl. I think you
thank you.
guys are doing a great job. I've seen it firsthand,
Cool.
and I appreciate you guys for working with our organization, Oregon Hunters Association,
Yeah,
to
you guys
help
have a
us
good
out.
you have a great coalition there. It's so good to have at the state level people that are staying informed and active and engaged. It's powerful because it's often not that way.
Right.
So I'm glad that you guys have that going, and it's great to hear that you're a part of it too.
Yeah, well, we're trying. I'm going to try and make sure that we're doing more. But I we, I always was. My mom always told me, he's like, if you're just complaining about a problem without the solution or trying to work towards a solution, you're just bitching about it. And I'm like, and so I was
We
talking to
do a lot of
somebody.
that as a community.
Exactly, yeah. And so somebody called me out on you like to talk about this, but what are you doing? I'm like, you're right. And so a couple of years ago, I got involved, and
Good.
yeah,
You're
so
probably you're probably more informed because of it. You probably
I am,
and
but I'm.
some of it's information you probably wish you didn't
Oh
have.
man, well, and it's surprising how much information I bring that people are like, "Wait, what? What's that?" And I even brought, I
Yeah.
think, IP3, or
Uh,
I think it was IP3. And I don't know if you know anything about IP3. It's a giant pile of shit. And I brought that to the attention, and no one knew about it because I had two listeners of the podcast that live in Oregon, and they're like, "What do you have you heard about this?" I'm like, "I haven't even heard about that." And so I texted my one of my buddies who's a politician, and I'm like, "Is this real?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Holy shit!" And it's coming up for vote soon. And
is it next? Is it 2025
it
or
was
like
well
they're going to get that
IP3.
on the ballot?
Yeah, IP3 failed the way it was, and we defeated it. But it's coming back, and they're calling it and redressing it, repackaging it into something else. But basically, they don't want you to even have your dog on a leash. They don't want you artificially inseminating a farm animal or any husbandry,
It's
whatever. They
crazy.
don't want you eating meat. They don't want you doing anything to an animal, a living object. Nothing. They want you eating pecans and walnuts and living a great life. So
But but to
yeah,
eat pecans and walnuts, I have to kill all the insects and the squirrels that live in the
we
orchard.
won't. Hey, now you're getting into facts. We don't get into common sense over here. So
Let's not.
it's just incredible how something like one bill picked on the ranching, the farming, and the hunting and the fishing community all at once. Like it hit everybody, and so everybody's like, "Holy crap!" And luckily the word got out about it. But it was like, how many people didn't know about this 2 months prior to voting? It was insane.
Our, I think it's a real test. It's almost like a prank. Like how stupid, how dumb,
Right.
or how or how lazy, how intellectually lazy are the voters to not read behind the headline and actually see what
Right.
they're voting on?
Well,
Because
yeah.
I can't imagine any even I just can't imagine anybody that's you know of sound intellect, no matter what their
Yeah.
dietary choices are or how they feel about animals, etc. I can't imagine how anybody with a balanced intellect would say yes to that. And I also can't imagine how the food and ag industry in Oregon
Right.
would ever allow this to get out of the gate.
Ridiculous. Well, it's the same way that we decriminalized drugs 2-3 years ago. Measured like I
Mm-hmm.
think 110, and
Mm-hmm.
shrooms and all this other stuff, and it was sold because I even voted. I'll be open. I voted for it because I thought it was something it wasn't.
Yeah.
The way that I was voted, the way that I was sold on 110 was like we can treat our using psilocybin and other psychedelics. You can actually treat
Mm-hmm.
PTSD for soldiers, and there's a lot of really good things that we can do with psilocybin and stuff like that to help our veterans out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, 100% agree. I mean, I've listened to tons of podcasts on that. I've talked to veterans. I've got buddies that are veterans that have done things and it helped them out with it. I'm like, dude, yeah, we need to pass that. And then after I passed it, I was like, wait, what? That's what it was? Like we decriminalized like
All of
everything?
it.
Yeah. Oh my
Right.
good God. It was not what me or anybody else I thought. Like we all thought it
Yeah.
was something else. And
Yeah.
even when you read the description, it didn't make it clear and obvious to me anyways. If memory serves me, I'm like, yeah, I'm voting to decriminalize all the drugs in Oregon. Yeah, that's retarded. So we're still dealing with that. Our everything's gone through the roof. Crime, suicide,
Right.
like deaths, everything. It's just like
Yeah.
Jesus. But that's the problem. Is that's a whole nother problem. We need to label these bills and these initiatives to reflect what they really are. Not
Right.
not label them. Don't let kids die bill. Like
Right.
well, what the heck's that?
Well, and the ads that then promote them, I think, should be held to some degree of
They
accountability.
should
That
be
they're actually advertising what's in the
one
legislation
hundred percent
because they frequently don't.
right.
Um,
It's
and
misleading.
there's no accountability there.
Yeah, because I never would have voted to decriminalize meth. Like, wow, I did that. I have that on my voting record now. That's awesome. But anyways, Mike, well, I do
Yeah.
appreciate it, man. And yeah, if you want to come back on here anytime, you just get a
Cool.
hold of me. And yeah, if you need to, put the flag up, don't
Yeah.
be afraid to get a hold of me.
Well, may want to cycle back, spring, early summer with an update on, and because I think Washington's exciting. There's always new and shocking things coming out of the commission there.
Right.
It'd be interesting to see how things are evolving up that way. Obviously, Colorado is going to be like, it's going to go into overtime in November, and we've got 4 quarters. We're just in the first quarter now.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting to track, and I think all eyes will be there on it, and then a lot of support will be there too. So we'll have some things to talk about. I appreciate the time, and thank you for having me on.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Right on.
Hey, everybody, thanks for listening to this episode of the podcast. Hopefully you hung around long enough to listen to this. If you guys are wondering, yes, I don't upload near as much as I used to. I've said a lot on this podcast. I've covered a lot on this podcast, and I just don't want to keep beating a dead horse with arrows and FOCs and all this crap that really is not going to help you be more successful most of the time, in my opinion. Those are just a small piece of the puzzle. So I'm gonna upload when I have something really exciting that I want to talk about, or something heavy on my heart, or something that I'm passionate about, or if I have a guest that's reached out to me and has something they're passionate about that I want to help share, I'll upload and I'll record. The main reason I'm recording this right now for you guys, talking to you, is I want your ideas. If you guys have a subject or a topic you want me to cover, you need to get a hold of me on Instagram or email me at garrettweaverhunts@gmail.com, and I will try my best to knock those out for you as soon as I can. Because outside of that, I've already said my piece in about 140 episodes, and I want to record something either when it's going to be entertaining or when it's going to be beneficial to my audience. And I feel like I've covered a lot. So you guys tell me what you want to hear about, or who you want me to have on, or what you guys want to learn about, and I am excited and happy to record on those topics or those areas for you. So, and hopefully I can learn along the way as well. So appreciate you guys for hanging with me through the I think it's been 5 years now that I've been recording this podcast, and I really appreciate all the support, all the great reviews, and I hope that you guys continue listening as I upload. But again, please reach out with ideas or topics. Some of you already do, but I need more. So anyways, hope you guys are doing great. Good luck during the draw season this year, and I hope you guys have a great rest of the day.